And we're back with bedtime stories. Grown-up edition. Collateral damage. Bonus episode 2. When we left off, MomBrenda had been released from the hospital, and she and Stephanie had a long overdue conversation. While the two women were talking, Anya and Ron had dropped a bomb. They took advantage of that opportunity to inform the family that they'd gotten married. They'd gone to the courthouse that same morning and eloped. Needless to say, everybody was shocked and the Queen Mother was pissed. It took Pops, Andy, LJ, and Donovan to keep her from strangling Ron. And while LJ and Donovan held the Queen Mother back, Pops Andy took Ron into another room. Once inside, Pops Andy said, "What are you trying to pull here, son?" Ron said, "Listen, like we explained to Miss Bella, we don't need a big wedding. We're ready to go ahead and start our lives together. There's a lot going on right now, and this isn't a good time to be planning a wedding anyway." Pops Andy said, "But you took away my opportunity to walk my only daughter down the aisle. You took away my wife's opportunity to play mother of the bride and do all the dolling up. Can you understand why she's upset and a little suspicious? And so am I." Ron said, "Yeah, but I had to do what Anya wanted." Pops Andy asked, "This was her idea?" Ron said, "Yes, and she was pretty adamant about it." Pops asked, "Well, did you at least try to talk her out of it?" Ron said, "I did, but I also had to see where she was coming from." Pops looked him in his eyes and said, "There's something you're not telling me. You better spit it out if you want me to help keep my wife off your behind." Ron said, "I'm an attorney. If I had a client who had second-hand information about their partner's involvement in a crime, my legal advice would be for them to marry. That would be the only legal way to protect the innocent party from prosecution if it was ever discovered that they had said second-hand information. A spouse can never be legally compelled to testify against another spouse." Pops asked, "Who's protecting whom?" Ron said, "With all due respect, that's between me and my wife. Just know, I love her with everything in me, and I'll do anything to protect her." After a few beats, Pops Andy realized that Ron could be the guilty spouse or the innocent one, because either way, he'd be protecting Anya. He stuck out his hand and said, "Welcome to the family, son." When the two men returned to the great room, the Queen Mother and Anya were still going at it. Pops Andy said, "Bella, let it go. Let's talk." Anya looked at Ron with her eyes wide open, and he sighed. "He knows enough. It'll be okay." Then Donovan looked between his parents and Ron and Anya and said, "Pops, everything good?" Pops Andy said, "Yep. Y'all welcome Ron to the family. There will still be a wedding. Let's just find my grandbabies first." The Queen Mother said, "But," Pops Andy cut her off and said, "Ron and Anya have the family's best interest at heart." When Pops Andy and the Queen Mother left the room, Anya signed to LJ and Donovan, "Will you two help me pack?" Later that night, when Q returned home, he was bombarded with bad news. Not only was there the issue with Veronica's offshore account being frozen, which meant that no money could be transferred in or out without her appearing at least an international bank in person, but Ron and Anya were married, and Woody had just gotten back into town, and he had a story to tell about his trip that didn't sound good. When Q returned Woody's call, Woody said, "Bro, I'm at the hotel bar. I had a couple drinks, so we got a couple of options. You can come here and we can kick it, or I can come through tomorrow." Q asked, "Can it wait until tomorrow? Your message sound urgent." Woody said, For sure. Q said, "Okay, good. It's been a crazy couple of days, man. Plus, I need to connect with the fam. Come by the firm first thing tomorrow." Q had finally talked his childhood best friend Woody into relocating from Brooklyn to Dallas. Since Woody is still getting to know the city, he prefers to stay at hotels. But Q's convinced him to let him purchase a house that Woody will pay for so that Woody can stay off the grid. As it stands, Woody is freelance for the Baptiste family and working off the books for LJ and Q's PI firm. Woody's criminal history makes it such that Q and LJ can't hire him legally without also bringing their legitimate business under scrutiny. But sometimes they need somebody who can operate outside the limits of the law. So this whole arrangement is perfectly fine with Woody because he loves doing the dirty work and keeping his eyes and ears to the streets. His preference is to operate in the shadows, and he has no plans or interests in ever being legitimate. One of the most important roles that Woody plays is remaining in contact with, keeping money on the books of, and keeping lifted the spirits of their other childhood best friend, Tough. Tough has been incarcerated for more than 20 years. He took the rap for a gang of murders that their 4-man crew committed back in the day when the boys were between the ages of 15 and 17. Murders that they committed in retaliation for the essay of Q and Donovan's baby sister Anya, who was born deaf. In the end, every boy associated with her assault died, and so did their other childhood best friend Stretch at the hands of the police. And Tough was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And like the true G he was, Tough took that bid without a second thought. He never snitched, never switched up, barely asked for anything, and never complained. Woody had just returned from seeing Tough at a prison in upstate New York. And from the voicemail that he left Q knew that the news wasn't good. Woody took that trip because he and Q were concerned. Neither of them had heard from Tough for months. When Q was in Miami dealing with that situation with the Newports, he sent Woody to the prison to visit Tough. But the prison administration told him that Tough was unable to have visitors. And since Woody wasn't family, they couldn't elaborate. So Woody took the drive from upstate New York to Brooklyn and paid a visit to Tough's family. In Brooklyn, Woody found out that Tough had been assaulted months before. He had to be rushed to the hospital, into surgery, had been in ICU, clinging to life. He was finally on the mend, though, back at the prison and in the infirmary. When Woody questioned why the family didn't contact him or Q, they said they didn't have Woody's information, and they had seen on the news that Q died in a house fire in Dallas, and they never saw an update saying that it wasn't true. So they had no idea that Q was alive and well. Woody provided them with both his and Q's contact information and told them to call as soon as Tough was able to have visitors. But before they could, Tough called Q himself. He said, "Man, I need to see you ASAP." With everything that was going on, Q couldn't leave town, so he sent Woody. When Woody showed up at the firm the day after he got back from upstate New York, he told Q, "So Tough knows who tried to kill him." Q said, "This is gonna be bad, ain't it?" Woody said, "You know how your mother always says that your past will always come back?" Q said, "Yep." Woody said, "Well, Tough was stabbed by King's older brother, Christian. King was the man who essayed Anya." Woody continued saying, "He got arrested right before we made that move on King and his crew. That nigga not only knew about what happened to Anya, but he was the one who duplicated that VHS tape. Q and his crew had handled King and his, and everybody who had had a copy of that tape." Q said, "Say word." Woody said, "Word." Tough used the code dispersed throughout our conversation to put me on. Apparently, Christian remembered Tough from the hood. He did his research to find out why Tough was locked up, and then executed a plan to kill Tough the day before he was scheduled to get out of jail. It was a miracle that Tough survived to even be able to tell the story. Q asked, "And he got away with it?" Woody said, "Yep." Q said, "Then how Tough find out?" Woody said, "Come on now, you know Tough. He got a crew in the joint, and they was determined to get back. When they found out it was Christian, they put that fire under his crew, and they started singing like canaries. And you ain't gonna believe this, bro." Q said, "Let me guess. Christian is in Dallas. Woody said, of course. Where else would he be? But check this out. So this dude, Christian, wasn't planning on finding you, or even me. His plan was to find Anya, make her life a living hell, send her over the edge, and then get the ultimate get back, either by having her off herself, implicate you in King's murder, and have you prosecuted, or turn to you for help, so that you would come after him, giving him the opportunity to kill you. You said, why you speaking in the past tense? Woody said, and that's the kicker. This nigga done fell off the map. Tuff's crew was following his plan play by play because he was in constant communication with his crew. He was updating them on the plan, putting money on their books. He even had a connect that was smuggling work into him. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. No communication, no commissary, no contraband, and nobody on the outside has seen or heard from him either. His family is even looking for him. It's been weeks, and now his crew is struggling on the inside. Q said, it's only 2 reasons why you blow off money. Woody said, yep, that man either dead or in jail. Q said, what else do we know? Woody said, yesterday, I ran down all the information that I got from Tuff. It wasn't easy with the code, but it all checked out. I even found his spot here in Texas, and that man ain't been there for weeks, and he definitely left with plans to come back. Food on the counters and everything. I also connected his old crew, so they eating again and singing like nobody's business. Tuff got a man that's getting out in about a month, and I'm going to pick him up from release on his out date. He'll fill me in on everything that they telling him now, and when I get back, I'll have all the blanks filled in. Q said, thanks, bro. Keep me posted. Until then, I'll put somebody on Anya. When Woody left, Q thought about it. And then he called Ron and said, we need to talk, bro. When Q got to Ron's office, he looked at him and said, you know somebody named Christian? Ron's eyes got big as saucers. And then he said, do you know someone named Christian? Q asked, is he why you and my sister eloped? Ron said, ask your sister.